Hi, I'm Michael Intravartolo here with Ken Sebahar, and this is a shot of Business Central and a beer, our monthly podcast to help you learn how to best utilize Microsoft's most popular ERP software. In this episode, we're going to be talking about recent Business Central news. We're going to talk about a few 2019 podcast highlights, building custom reports, and we're also going to speak about the clever global search app while we sip and review Trader Joe's Providential Golden Ale. So, let's get started.
All right, glad to be here, Michael. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well.
2020 is upon us.
Yeah.
I'm recovering from a little bit of a cold. So
yeah, I actually had a cold for a couple days too.
I'm hoping that maybe the alcohol and the beer will help maybe dry up some of these sinuses for me.
Did you ring in the new year with a Roaring 20s party or anything? Or maybe Barbara Walters saying this is 2020?
No. I brought in the new year with a quiet night at home after a nice dinner.
Nice. So that's the way to do it. Well, I hope you're feeling better.
Yep.
So today's beer that we got here was provided by our colleague Elena. Like I said, it's Trader Joe's Providential Golden Ale. So I guess as I take my first sip, I have to confess I've never had a beer from Trader Joe's before. Have you?
Nor have I, and I did not know they exist.
Neither did I.
And I guess it's a sign of the times, right? We knew that there's tons of craft beers out there.
Yeah.
That, right? I think there's something like close to 200 craft breweries just in the Chicago area here.
Right.
Where we're at, and I don't even think we're one of the largest areas in the United States. So it seems like everyone is brewing beer now, even Trader Joe's. So.
Yep. So all right. Well, here's to the first sip of Trader Joe's beer.
Cheers to 2020.
To 2020.
So this is a Belgian ale that we're drinking, and I did look a little bit ahead at some of the reviews on this because I was surprised Trader Joe's had a beer, and I definitely know why I saw a lot. I saw the word banana a lot.
Yes, as did I.
And it's the first thing that I tasted.
Banana?
As soon as I started drinking it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So I saw some other things where they said that aroma was a bready malt and caramel sweetness. I guess I got a sweetness for the aroma. But yeah, definitely, I don't know about banana peel.
Yeah.
They were using to describe it, but banana, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, banana.
It actually had a surprisingly high rating on Beer Advocate. It had a rating of 88, or otherwise known as very good.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I looked at it and I was actually getting excited because, I like to read some of the reviews. Yeah. It's always fun going through some of those. And I was looking for some really tough comments, and I didn't find them. I saw a couple that were maybe not, overwhelmingly supportive. Mm-hmm. But most of them said, hey, for the price point, it's pretty good beer.
Yeah, I mean, this beer strikes me as one of those beers where it's a lighter beer. Lighter beers generally aren't really, really bad. They're okay or really good. I don't think I've ever had a really bad lighter beer, I guess Belgian ale or whatever you want to call it.
Belgian style ale, right. A golden ale, 7.5% alcohol, which is stronger than I anticipated it was going to be.
So Trader Joe's, from what I understand, currently puts their name on 21 different beers like this. This one is from Unibrow Brewery, or Unibrow.
Unibrow, probably.
Yeah, maybe a little French accent or something. But so let me read you a little bit about what they said about this. It says Unibrow Brewery draws inspiration from the great brewing traditions developed over the last 2 centuries by Trappist monks in Europe, particularly in Belgium. Their beers preserve all their proteins and part of their yeast, making them truly worth savoring. I had no idea that Trappist monks were into beer.
Beer? Oh, yeah.
Really?
Wine also, I think, going back years. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Right.
But, so not too
bad.
Back
hundreds and hundreds of years. Back into, talking like the Middle Ages, 1500s, back in the earliest, some of the earliest beers were originally
From Trappist monks?
right. Yeah.
Really? Had no idea.
What do you think they're doing up in those mountains all the
Trying to
time?
survive.
Yeah.
I guess with a
Drinking
smile on their
beer.
face.
Right.
So, what do you think of the beer?
It's pretty good. It's I taste that breadiness, that kind of that yeastiness to it.
Yeah.
Like a golden ale, like I would
Right.
expect. I'm on the fence. I'm not sure about this banana
Part
taste
And I
that's in
think
my mouth, and I can't even. I feel like I'm not even smelling
Yeah.
very well
Oh,
today,
so
and I
it's-
still am getting a huge banana.
I think as it gets
flavor.
more warm too, we might taste it more.
Probably will. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I agree with you. It's not a bad beer. Not one of my favorites, but definitely not a bad beer. Yeah, like you said, the banana part, I guess I'd be on the fence too, especially as it gets more warm.
Yeah.
Hopefully the flavor
So
doesn't
we'll have to
intensify.
see how this goes. But we should mention it's like a 750 milliliter bottle.
Yeah.
So it's not like a 6-pack or regular or
Right.
cans.
Yeah.
So they're larger bottles for pretty good price point, I think.
Yeah, I do not know the price, but maybe $5 to $8 somewhere along that line for the bottle.
Right. I think $5.99 probably.
Not bad. So as we sip on these cold banana flavored beers, why don't we talk about a few of our 29 podcast moments or highlights from
Yeah.
that we enjoyed?
Yeah.
After me take a message. No, I'm just kidding. So one of my, I guess, favorite. Actually, you know what we can start with? I'm going to start down with a little countdown of our top 6 most popular segments from 2019 based on views and listens and whatnot.
Oh, excellent.
So number 6 was our segment for Business Central on-premise release wave 2 updates.
Okay.
Number 5 was our 6 favorite Business Central October 2019 wave 2 features. See a little bit of a correlation here. Number 4 was our assembly orders versus production orders and manufacturing segment. Number 3, Business Central Cloud October 2019 Release Wave 2 updates. Number 2, upgrading from Nav to Business Central as told by the customer. And the most popular segment from a Shot at Business Central podcast in 2019 was the Business Central October 2019 Wave 2 Release Features Overview, where we talked about the new features coming out and whatnot.
Yep.
So it seems that people are really interested in hearing what's coming before it's actually out there.
What's coming? What's new?
Right.
What do we have to be excited about?
Yeah.
And what do you think of it?
Yeah. On that list, though, I would say nothing really shocked me too much. Manufacturing is always a big one.
No, I
Release
think
Wave 2.
Right. Yep.
And then the upgrading from Nav to Business Central is told by the customer. I think in the long run that might be one of our more popular ones.
Yeah, and I think, I think we said, last month when we had Jim Geo from Triangle Package Machinery here join us and talk about his experiences with Dynamics and moving to Business Central and some of the things he was hoping to get out of it. I think we knew that, customers, people like to hear from other people and see what their thoughts are if they've already gone through it.
Right.
So
Yeah, what
I
about
figured that
trials and
would be pretty popular. And our goal, one of our goals for this year is to improve that, to get more guests in here, right? And share
Definitely.
more stories and more experiences in actually using Business Central and how they do it.
Right. Yeah. All the better to gain a real perspective on what it is that we do. So, keeping with that, did you have a favorite segment from 2019?
Well, yeah, my favorite segment, again, because I do love, my favorite thing about, what I get to do every day is meeting with customers and working with them to get the most out of Dynamics Business Central. So for me, it was our session with Jim.
Yeah.
So meeting with him, talking to him, and gaining his perspective,
Right.
I thought was one of my favorite highlights of the year.
Yeah, it was a good time too. I mean, he's a great guy, so we got to have a little bit of fun while also learning from one another. One of my favorite segments, I guess you could say, is I really liked the feature we did with assembly orders versus production orders. One, because I got to learn a lot from it. Two, we deal, not primarily, but we deal heavily with manufacturers here. So it's really good to gain that knowledge, and I liked it. Did you have anything that you didn't like, or do you have more that you liked?
Well, my on a lighter note, one of my favorite moments of our 2019 podcasts was, I think it was pretty early on.
Mm-hmm.
We were drinking New Belgium's Fat Tire, which you referred to as Flat Tire. Which
I wasn't the beer drinker at that moment, right?
I guess you weren't too fond of it.
From my recollection, it was actually pretty good. But yeah, if I wasn't fond of it, Flat Tire would have been a great name for it.
So I enjoyed you calling that Flat Tire. On a similar light note, I also do have a worst, moment
for me
for our 2019 podcasts.
All right.
Which was the stomach ache that I got after we finished doing our podcast when we were drinking the Leinenkugel's summer shandies, and we were drinking. We had the lemon regular summer shandy, but then we also had orange. And
it was like
cherry.
A 3-pack.
Right.
I wasn't fond of the cherry.
The orange.
So it got you, huh?
Yeah. The sweetness of it. Did not treat me very well.
Really?
Yeah.
So no more Leinekugel summer shandies for you?
Well, I think the summer shandies were okay. It was either the volume of the shandies that I had, or I think it might have been the orange. That's where I've pegged it anyway.
It's pretty good. That's pretty good. Well, I guess you know my most embarrassing moment. You already said it with the Flat Tire. One of my... favorite moments too, though. Well, I don't want to say favorite, but one of my, I guess it was a good moment. It was actually when you finally got stumped with the Ken Stump segment. The look on your face was priceless, because I could see you wanted revenge. And you were upset with it. Yeah, but it took a good 6 months. I think it was episode 6, so that's
a little bit of
pretty good
competitiveness came out there.
That was great. Yeah. Did you have any favorite apps or anything that you can recall off the top of your head from 2019? Or maybe the one we're going to discuss today?
I think I'll stick with the plus and then the minus. On the positive side, not one particular app came to my mind, but the fact that there were so many apps that became available over the year, and that when we talked about certain types of apps, that there were so many options. Like, for example, we talked about payroll apps, and there was a number of them. We talked about commission apps, and there was maybe a half dozen, I think, that were available. So for me, that's what I loved, is the variety and the different options that are available out there even today for so many different things. Shipping, document management. There's a whole bunch of apps.
Everything.
For each thing.
Apps for food. That goes with Business Central. And I'd say there are probably, 35 to 70 new apps being put out every month? I know we don't have any exact numbers.
At least 30 a month that they've been averaging over the last several months.
One of my favorite apps. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would say one of my favorite apps was when we did the Clever Documents Links app, because at the time there were not too many drag and drop apps, and that one actually surprised me a lot. It was very functional, worked really well.
Easy to use.
Yeah.
And on the other end of the spectrum, one of my favorites was when we did I think it was a copy and replace app that we tried to do, and it just didn't even install.
Yep.
And we got nowhere with it, and we decided, you know what? Should we pick another app? No. Let's talk about our experiences with using AppSource and what are the types of things that maybe you might encounter as you're out there.
So with that app, actually, I tried to install it a couple days ago again, and it still would not install in
You
Business
are a
Central.
glutton for punishment.
Yeah, I just wanted to see. So I think the version might not have been updated or whatnot. What about beer? Did you have a favorite beer in 2019? Are you going to go with Zombie Dust? I know you like or love.
Favorite beer.
My favorite beer
yeah.
was the Energy City's Brewing Milkshake Naui Pineapple. I really like the Zombie Dust, but something about the pineapple one, I think it's because it completely shocked me in how it tasted compared to what I thought it was going to taste like. Just with the name alone, I thought I was going to get like this thick beer with a pineapple, with a hint of pineapple, kind of like a pineapple milkshake, I guess, the way it's worded. But I don't know. So when we tried it, it was kind of light, didn't have too much of a pineapple flavor. I really thought it was pretty good.
I'm gonna go with that same beer.
Yeah.
And I think because it had everything that a craft beer should
pure
have.
Craft beer.
It had a funky name.
Yeah.
It had a ton of flavor.
Yeah.
Uniqueness, made by a small brewer.
Right.
With a wide variety of different types of unique beers.
Yeah.
A relatively high price point, I think.
I remember, yeah.
So it kind of had it all. So I think it
did.
was like a great, craft beer for us to kind of focus on.
Yeah, it was really good. So that's my countdown. I don't have too much.
Yeah, I
else.
think
What about
kind
you?
of like as we kind of like so to recap, looking at the last year, I think part of what we're going to be looking to do over the next year here is make sure that we're focusing on what's new, the feature previews and the feature reviews.
Yeah.
That talks about what's coming and what's new and our feedback on that and takeaways from it, and then also some sessions that focus on the more complex topics, like we talked about assembly versus production orders.
Right.
Maybe this year we'll focus on some of those similar type of more complex topics that maybe an online training video is not going to provide you the level of depth
Yeah.
on the coverage of the pros and the cons and the implications of using it a certain way, maybe. So.
Right. Yeah, and I think we're also going to try to bring in some more people as well.
Yeah.
Get more perspective. So. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Stay tuned for the next segment, which is going to be the Shot of Business Central. We are back with the Shot of Business Central. We've got some interesting news planned for today. First of all, we want to start out with Microsoft has released the dates for the upcoming 2020 release wave 1 that is planned. So the first date is January 27, 2020, which is when the release plans will be available. So you'll be able to see the features, what functionality, what all is coming in the first part of, or I guess April 1st for general availability. The next date is February 3rd, 2020, which is when they're saying early access will be available. Now, as my trusty co-host pointed out, when they say early access, they are most likely not meaning for Business Central. It could be for one of the other, softwares that are being updated at the time. And what we're seeing is for early access, it's probably, I don't know, what would you say, 3 to 4 weeks?
Couple weeks.
After that, couple weeks
before the general availability date.
Yeah.
That a preview has been available.
Right.
At least for the last 2 wave releases that have come out, the wave 1 and wave 2 for 2019, we saw that users could go in and create a sandbox for that new preview version a couple to a few weeks ahead of the general availability date.
Right.
But definitely not as far back, because that release plan document covers all of the Dynamics products.
Yeah.
So there may be other Dynamics products where the early preview is available much earlier.
Yeah.
But for Business Central, at least historically so far, we're seeing that it's really just a couple weeks. So, I wouldn't go out into your admin center and thinking you're going to create a preview sandbox
Right, on February 3rd.
On February 3rd.
Yeah, it's most likely not going to happen.
Probably not. Now, maybe we'll be surprised.
Maybe.
And that would be great. But I just wouldn't expect that.
And same holds true for the general availability date of April 1st. It's most likely not going to be April 1st when your tenant is updated. we're seeing anywhere from, let's just say, 3 to 6 weeks after.
Right.
So somewhere along there, you might get the update.
Yep.
But yeah, do not expect it on April 1st. So I like that they've put out the stuff already, letting us know the dates pretty early on, and it's coming fast. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think so. It's exciting because our next podcast will be after the 27th. So on our next podcast, we're going to be able to share a lot of what's planned for the Wave 1 2020 release.
Pretty
So
pretty crazy.
That's exciting.
And then I know you want to talk a little bit about app deployment and upgrades. What do you got for us?
Yeah. So one of the things that may have, if you're using Business Central Cloud, and as you've gone through the updates during 2019, you may have experienced this issue, which is that when your environment gets upgraded to the newest release, some of your extensions are uninstalled, while other extensions or apps remain installed. So what's the deal? What gives? Well, I came across an article from Microsoft MVP Mohana Krishna Yadav. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I want to give credit where credit's due. Posted a blog article that basically points out that the determining factor that says, is an app or an extension going to get uninstalled when an update is applied? It depends how that extension or app is deployed. If it was deployed by going into Business Central, opening extensions and choosing the upload extension option, then that extension will remain installed. However, if you have a developer who is developing an extension and they're deploying the extension directly from Visual Studio Code, those are not allowed to be installed. So those are the ones being uninstalled during updates.
It's interesting. I'd like to actually do a little bit more research to see why that is.
Yep. Yeah. So the takeaway, at least, and who knows? Maybe that'll change in the future. But at least the takeaway now is one, just understand that there is a reason, there is logic behind the madness.
Yeah.
But also that if you can, use the extension management page in Business Central to upload new versions of extensions and upload new extensions. Because what you don't want, right, every time an update gets applied, over time you may end up with 10 or 20 or 50 extensions in your Business Central environment. You don't want those being uninstalled and having to go reinstall those every time an update's applied.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really, really helpful article. So I thought
it's definitely a great tip.
We should share that.
Definitely a great tip. And I wonder if, like you said, over time when you get so many extensions and whatnot, if it's going to be any sort of an issue when you're uninstalling 50 extensions and then it's trying to reinstall them back. It's updated.
It might be. I don't know if I have 50, but I might have close to that.
Yeah.
In one of my environments, and I have not had any issues with my environment being updated on a regular basis. A lot of mine are apps. I do have some custom extensions that are in there, but
no issues.
So far, no.
Nice. Sounds good. Also, next on the list, I guess, would be the database export.
Yeah. So one of the new features that came out, I believe it was with the 2019 Wave 2 release, was the ability to create an export of your Business Central database. And how this is done is within the Business Central Admin Center. If you open up one of your environments, actually it's only your production environment.
Okay.
So you can only, first of all, do a database export for your production environment.
Okay.
So you have a new option called Create Database Export. So when this first was announced and within the documentation, it was kind of vague. What does this mean? What I can just create a SQL database, like a backup file?
That's exactly what I would think.
And then I can just restore that onto like a local SQL Express and run reports, or what is that?
So you're saying you're going to be the bearer of bad news, that it's not that simple?
Well, it is not that simple. But So what it does is it uses Azure SQL. So in order to do this, you have to have an Azure portal account and create an Azure SQL kind of database container to hold the database.
Wow.
And then when you go in and select this Create Database Export option, you can pick the parameters of what your file name is, what your container name is on SQL Azure, and then you can export your database into that SQL Azure environment.
Wow.
Okay.
So it sounds a little bit more complicated than...
Yeah, I think probably most of our customers that we work with on Business Central Cloud probably are going to need our help.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that definitely, if you're not sure what that might entail, contact your partner.
Yeah.
They should be able to walk you through those steps of what's required to do that. Probably will be some fees, right? Because you're using Azure SQL database services.
Right.
So you're going to have at least some storage fees to use that service on Azure. And also, the last little thing is that there's a note on here where it's keeping track. It says each environment is limited to 10 exports per month. And then it actually shows me this environment has 10 exports remaining for this month. So it's actually tracking how many times you've exported the database.
Now, what's your take on the number they give you, 10 per month?
I think what I'm not sure. I didn't see anything specifically on it, but I'm pretty sure what they're looking to avoid people doing is creating a database export like on a high frequency, maybe every hour or more often. So they're actually like replicating the Business Central database in a SQL Azure environment. I think they want to avoid that because that would put a lot of load or stress on the Business Central environment.
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to limit that by just saying 10 a month. You can create 10 kind of backup copies on a monthly basis.
But like you said, it's also definitely something that your partner would have to get involved with and help you out.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if you have someone in your organization who's technically competent, or like an IT person, or someone who's familiar with Azure, they definitely can go do it. For you. You don't have to use your partner to do it.
Right.
But most of our customers who are using Business Central, right? They love Business Central because they don't need an IT staff. They don't have to have a dedicated IT resource to do these things for them, right? It's a cloud getting updated automatically. There's no software to install. All those great things that come with it being a cloud application, right, means that they probably don't have that IT person who understands that. So.
Right, and speaking of having your partner help out and being technically savvy and adapt and whatnot, there is this, website out there called Microsoft Learn. This is going to be a pretty good segue into our next segment. So Microsoft Learn offers between 102 to 105 training videos, what we last saw. And would you say it's pretty good at giving you high-level overview of Business Central modules, or is it more in-depth than a high-level overview?
I think it's more in-depth than high-level.
Okay.
I think, so I kind of we touched on this during our last, we kind of introduced the Microsoft Learn last month. And we went in, we kind of talked about how there's about 102 or 105 modules.
Right.
And so we kind of left it at that. So, but we dug a little bit deeper over the last month on this. And what I found was I did a little tally here. I went in and I looked at all of the different modules. And what I found is that there's over 7,100 minutes of videos.
Free videos, right?
Free videos available on Business Central.
That's amazing.
So over 102 modules, that's 118 hours of video-based training for Business Central.
That's thousands and thousands of dollars saved.
So the average module, you're talking about almost 70 minutes. Right? So about an hour per module. A lot of them are 30 to 40 minutes, but some of them are 3 hours or 3.5 hours.
So they get very in depth.
So very in depth. So this is not, something where it's, here's how you open the system and here's what a roll center is.
Yeah.
This is like, for example, I went ahead and went through the course. I'm like, what's something that's not typical? What's something that not every customer uses? And what came to mind was a feature called item charges, where you can take, like, let's say inbound handling, inbound shipping or freight, and you can take an invoice from a freight vendor, and you can actually apply that invoice to previously received inventory that came from a different vendor. So these are called item charges. So I went out and I did a search. There's a whole module or course where I got a badge
For item
for
charges?
passing item charges. It was a
Wow.
5-minute video, walk through how to create a new purchase document, create the item charge line, what the different options are for assigning the item charges, posted the transaction and showed the results and how it created value entries to assign. And then when I was done, it kind of walks you through. So there's also some traditional documentation that you can read through if you want. And then at the end, you can take a little test. So I took a 4-question test, and I passed.
Nice.
4 out of 4.
First try?
Thank you very much. First try.
Nice.
And then when I passed the test, it said, "Congratulations, you earned a badge."
Oh, real nice.
So I got my
So you
first
feel good about
my
it,
first
too.
badge.
That's great. Congratulations.
And it checks it off. Now, if you're gonna do, I actually did this. I started it and I was not logged in. So and I took the item. I went through the item charges topic. Took about under 10 minutes to go through the whole thing. And then at the end, it said you've earned a badge. But if you want to get your badge, you need to sign in.
Right.
So at that point, I actually signed in, and then it applied my badge to my account.
Nice. So let's just say you were a customer. From a customer's perspective, do you think that they could go in, do this training, and not need the help of a partner for whatever it is, and just be an expert on whatever the topic is that they want?
I do.
Okay.
So with kind of a caveat. So if a customer, let's stick with this item charges example. If we assume that the customer knows that they want to deploy the item charges feature within Business Central, then this is an effective tool to teach them how to do that.
Okay.
But the problem is, what we are, in our experience anyway, a user isn't going to know that they need to use the item charges feature to assign those inbound purchasing freight to their inventory cost. Right? So what they're going to say is they're going to typically contact us and say, "Hey, I got this vendor for my freight. I would like to add this freight bill to the value of my inventory because that's actually part of the cost of my inventory. So I want it to become part of my cost of goods sold. Is there a way I can do that in Business Central?" And we would say, yeah, it's called item charges.
Okay.
Now, historically, we then would have had to provide 15 minutes of training or 30 minutes of training on how that item charge feature works and answer their questions. What I think is cool now is that we can do that. We can say, yeah, you want to use the item charges feature. The customer now has the opportunity to go out to Microsoft Learn, pull up, find the item charges, walk through it, go into their sandbox, set it up, test it out, make sure they like how it works, and then deploy it. And then if they have any questions, then they can contact us and say, "Hey, I was using this, but we have this scenario where we need to apply the freight to transfer orders. Does it work? Can I do that?" Right? Or whatever the question might be.
Right. So what do you think the overall consensus would be then from partners with Microsoft putting out free training material?
Right.
Do you think they're going to be for it, against it? I mean, is it going to cut into their money-making abilities? What do you think?
Yeah, so historically, as a Microsoft partner, we've been selling Dynamics for years. A significant portion of our revenue came from training new customers and existing customers on how to use the software. And so, yeah, there is that element. But what's I think is different today is people's expectations that they're not going to have to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
Either because they believe that they are just going to be able to figure it out on their own.
Right, I think the expectation of out-of-the-box software.
Which is, I personally believe, is unrealistic.
Yeah.
Or that there are free training tools available.
Right.
Which
they can
now
find whatever they want on YouTube.
Right, which now is the case. So, and yeah, there's always been what's available on YouTube, but you got to do some work sometimes to find the right video. You might spend 30 minutes looking at garbage until you finally come upon something that's useful.
Yeah.
Now Microsoft is doing it. They're making sure it's complete and accurate.
So they're just adapting with the times. I mean,
I
they
think
want
so.
to be the one who's giving the information, who's educating the consumer, as opposed to some random person.
Right. And as a partner, and as a customer too, I think it's important that they know that there are all of these tools available out there. I mean, there's stuff, from everything, from setting up your environment, setting up your chart of accounts, creating vendors, creating customers, creating new purchase orders, creating journal entries, running financial statements, creating data sets to use with Power BI. All of this, it's all there. 7,000 minutes of video-based training that's there today. Who knows how much more they'll be adding, right, over time. Now from our perspective as a partner, we always want to be here to answer any questions. So what do I think the end result is? I think the end result is that these videos, Microsoft Learn, these tools that they provide will be useful for 80 to 90% of what customers need to know.
Okay.
The 10 to 20% that they will not be able to get answered through here are exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is great, but we do it this way.
Right.
Or what about this, right? Those things, or where we really provide value, and maybe it's only that 10%, and that's great if that's all we're going to do, is the guidance on should we use this feature?
Makes sense.
Or should we use that feature? Or does this make sense for us to do it this way or that way?
Right.
Kind of the business process consulting on features,
Mm-hmm.
right? A common one we talked about earlier today was, should I be using assembly orders or production orders?
Yeah.
There's videos out there that's going to show you how to create an assembly BOM and process an assembly order.
Mm-hmm.
But
You don't know if it's the right one.
is that what you should be using, or should you be doing the production BOM?
You still need an expert.
I think so. I think because Business Central it's a very robust application, and especially when it comes to inventory management, there are a lot of features and capabilities and options for how you set up and configure the system that will significantly change your workflow, especially in the area of warehouse management. How you define your location. If you open your location card, for example, there's a warehouse tab, and on that tab, there's a bunch of checkbox fields. One is bin mandatory, require pick, require warehouse shipment, require put away, require warehouse receipt. What do those fields do?
Yeah, you're not going to know.
And what's the impact of using those on your workflow? And can I use those with lots and serial numbers, right?
Yeah, you're not going to know. Right? Yeah, you definitely need help of a partner or an expert.
Right.
Somebody's got a little bit of expertise.
So those are the things. So overall, I love that this is all out there. It's a tool that we as a partner will use to make sure people are up to speed on certain features and capabilities as we
Definitely.
bring new people on board. But also to just be able to point customers to these and go, oh, you want to learn about dimensions? Go out to Microsoft Learn. Spend an hour watching that video, and then call me and let me know what questions you have.
Right. So it's a great starting point. Might even save them a little bit of money, but so it's a great tool. We are in agreement. And with that wraps up our shot at Business Central. Unless you've got any more breaking news or anything.
No, I think I'm just already looking forward to our next shot next month. We're going to hopefully be hammering through what's new in this next April 1 release coming up.
A lot of features and everything. So, all right, stay tuned. Next, we're going to be talking about an assisted search app. Back with our next segment, which we're going to be talking about a feature of Business Central, and it's a very popular feature. A lot of people always want to know how to build custom reports in Business Central, and our go-to is usually to tell them to and show them how to use Power BI integrated with Business Central. There's a lot of other options out there. Jet Reports comes to mind. Anything else off the top of your head?
Well, you can just build a custom report within Business Central using an extension.
Right.
So just take if you want a modified, let's say like a sales analysis report to analyze your sales by salesperson or something. You could just build a custom report, but that you need a developer to do that using Visual Studio Code, and you're deploying an extension.
Right. Now, building the customer report with Business Central and Power BI, you're basically using the assisted setup feature, and it's walking you through and whatnot, right?
Yeah. So the question is, okay, so I want to analyze my sales data. I want to maybe look at it by salesperson. I want to maybe look at it by territory or dimension, whatever. Power BI, as you know, Michael and others here, that Power BI is integrated within Business Central. Mm-hmm. So right within your Business Central pages, you see Power BI graphs and reports, and there is a page. You can use your search within Business Central, and you can open up a page called Web Services. And the Web Services page lists a bunch, probably, 50 to 100 different pages and queries that are in here that are basically ways that you can pull the data from Business Central. And so a lot of these are already existing due to existing Power BI reports that Microsoft has created. But you can use the assisted setup to build your own web service.
Nice.
So let's go through it. We'll walk through here for the purpose of this podcast, a little example. So let's say that you want to look at your sales by customer, and by date, and by salesperson. So we would decide that the best approach for that would be to use customer ledger entries. And let's say, okay, well, I don't see a web service for customer ledger entries out there, so we need to build a new one. So you can go into assisted setup, and there's an assisted setup out there, and it is called Set Up Reporting Data, which is kind of an odd name, but I get it. Okay, so we're going to set up reporting data. So I'm going to click on that link and say, yes, I want to run this. And it opens a little wizard. And it walks you through some steps. And what we're actually building here is a data set for Power BI.
Okay.
So I'm going to click next. I can either create a new data set, I can create a copy of an existing data set, or I can edit an existing one that I've already created. So I can just create a new one, and then I give it a new name, customer ledger entries maybe, whatever I want to call it. My source is going to be a page, or it could be a query. So what the difference between a page and a query? A page is one table of data, right? It's customers, it's ledger entries, it's whatever. It's one table of data.
Okay.
A query is a type of object that can exist within Business Central that pre-links and joins multiple tables together to kind of create a flattened data set. So the query kind of can take some of the work out of building a report for you ahead of time. But you typically would need a developer to build a query.
Okay. So most likely you're going to go with Page then.
We're going to go
source.
with Page usually. Right?
Okay.
So we'll pick Page, and then there's a table source ID or data source ID. This gives you the list of every table in the Business Central database. And there's a little search box up at the top, and I can type in part of my name, customer ledger entry or whatever, right? And it'll kind of narrow down that view so I can find what I'm looking for. So for example, customer ledger entries is page 25.
Okay.
So I'm going to click on there, I'm going to say okay, and then I'm going to click next. The next field is it gives me a list. It says, what fields do you want to include from the customer ledger entry table in your data set? And some of them are pre-checked for me. I can go in, I can check or uncheck different fields determined based on what I want to add in here. Now what's also cool is there's a button on the field list called Add Filters. So in the example here where we want to look at sales for customer ledger entries, there are two types of customer ledger entries. There's invoices and then there's payments.
Okay.
There's also credit memos, a couple other ones.
Right.
We only want to look at invoices and credit memos. So I'm going to click Add Filters, and I get a list of a bunch of fields, any field really, that I can filter my data on. So I'm going to pick document types invoice and credit memo. And then I'm going to hit Publish.
Okay.
Publish is going to create that web service, and it's going to create an OData URL. That's that address that I'm going to connect to from within Power BI.
So that's what's used then to pull in your information.
That's how I connect to my Business Central data.
So it allows it to read.
Right? So that's kind of step one. Now step two is I'm going to use the Power BI desktop.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Power BI is a web-based app, right? You can run it on any device.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a tool called the Power BI desktop that you install, and we would recommend that you use this if you're building reports. It's much more feature-rich than using the online report writer. Right. So anyone can download and set up and use the Power BI desktop for free.
Yep. You can have a free account.
So what I'm going to do is now I'm in the Power BI desktop. I'm going to click on Get Data. And in the Get Data page, I see a list of all these different types of databases and files and ways that things I can use as my data source. Up on the very top box, I'm just going to type in Business Central. And then I'm gonna see on the results, I'm just gonna click on Dynamics 365 Business Central and click on Connect. It's gonna authenticate me and make sure that I have a valid connection. And then it's gonna pull up a list of my environments. So in my environment, I have a production environment and I have a sandbox environment. So I'm gonna do this out of my production environment. So I'm gonna click on production. Then under there, I see a list of my companies in my Business Central environment. I'm going to click on my Cronus USA company. And then I see a list of all of my web services. All those pages that I published as web services are there.
So the same ones from Business Central are there, huh?
Right.
Nice.
And there's my new one that I just created. And I know you can't see this right now through the podcast, but
We'll have a video though, which shows.
yeah, we're gonna take a video of this exact exercise we're walking through, and we'll put it up on the podcast site afterwards in case you want to actually watch this in action. Okay, so what it does then is it's actually going to build my data set in Power BI and pull in all my fields.
Wow.
So now I can just drag, I want customer number, I want my amount, I want my a date filter here, right? I can add all those different pieces of information. I want salesperson code, right? All these things are on here. So I'm now started building my report. I can save my report. I can publish my report.
Change the visualizations.
Right. I can create a data grid. I can do a map view, bar charts, all different kinds of visualizations. Right.
Very simple.
And if I add more charts, they are all automatically integrated. So here's kind of advanced part 2. Let's say that I don't want to just see the salesperson code. I want to see the salesperson name.
Okay.
Well, the salesperson name field is not on the customer ledger entry. So what I need to do is I need to create another new web service or data set in Business Central for my salesperson table.
Okay.
Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to publish that, pull that into this data set, and link those 2 tables together.
And then you'll be able to have...
And there's a button on top called where you can hit model and you can connect your fields together. And then now I can pull my salesperson's name in. So you actually can build reports that are utilizing multiple tables.
Right.
And you're able to define what those relationships are between the tables right within Power BI.
And you can literally build a report, 10 minutes, I guess, if that. Once you do it the first time.
There, yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
We'll see however long my video is that I publish. I mean, I'm going to add a bunch of different visualizations and some filters, and I'll go through those steps of adding the second web service and stuff into there.
Very simple, very, very powerful. And then from there, I don't know if you want to talk about it, you can actually publish it to your Power BI in the cloud then, with your Office 365.
Correct.
And if you have Power BI Pro, you can share it to other people and let them see your report, and
That's
have a little bit more control over it that way.
Yep. The Power BI Pro is more useful for sharing. It adds more security because you can share with people under your same domain name. Right. So it adds some security there. But yeah, this is, it's really, really quick and easy to do. Again, going back to our last segment, there are Microsoft Learn videos out there also that talk about this whole process of creating that data set, using the assisted setup, and then using Power BI to create reports.
Very nice. Very, very nice. Well, there you have it. A report created by Ken within 5 to 10 minutes. Like he said, we're going to have a video for you in the show notes, so stay tuned for that. Next, we're going to talk about the clever global search app that we found in App Source. So stay tuned.
Thank you. All right. So this month, we're talking about the app available out on App Source called Clever Search, or Clever Global Search. And there are multiple search apps out there on App Source. And you might say, well, why are there search apps out there? Can't I search for data within Business Central? And the answer is, yes, you can if you know what you're searching for. So for example, if I know I'm looking for a customer, I might pull up a list of customers and then do a search. Or if I know I'm looking up a list of items, I might pull up the item list and then do a search. But sometimes you don't know what you're looking for. You might have a customer on the phone and they have a number they're giving you, and you're not sure if it's their order number or their PO number, or maybe it's a shipment number, but they're asking questions about it. So the benefit of the global search is it allows you to search across multiple tables at the same time from one user interface. Think of like a Google search, right? Mm-hmm. You type in, I'm searching for PO 1234, and it goes out and it looks across all these different websites. Same concept in Business Central, the global search tool will search across multiple tables. Could be customer, item, orders, shipments, invoices, credit memos, and it finds any records where it matches those values that you found. So that's kind of the value of, or reason that someone might want to use a global search tool within Business Central. Michael, you installed it.
Yep.
What'd you think?
So the installation to me was a breeze. Within 10 minutes, I'd say, maybe a couple minutes less, I was able to search for what I wanted. Searching was fast and precise, which goes back to Ken talking about how you can choose which tables and whatnot you want to search. It definitely speeds up the search. I like that during the setup, when I was choosing which tables and records that I want to search, I can use something called a table filter, which allows me to not have certain things shown within the search. I thought that was pretty good. So all in all, yeah, setup process was really good. I didn't get too much into the obfuscation. How do you say it?
Obfuscation?
Obfuscation. Yeah.
You think? I don't know. I don't use that word too often.
Yeah, me either. But I didn't get too much into that part. I know Ken tried it out a little bit, had some issues with it. It's really for being GDPR compliant. But yeah, all in all, one of the better apps for installation. Simple, smooth, no issues whatsoever. Worked great. I'd highly recommend it. It's from, like Ken said, Clever Dynamics, or Clever, what is it?
Yep.
Yeah, Clever Dynamics.
Great price point. If you're running Business Central Cloud, it's under $20 a month.
Right.
And it's not user-based. It's just system-based. So regardless of how many users you have or how many tables you want to search across or how many fields, none of that matters. It's just a single once per month fee. Very, very well priced.
Yeah.
Something I think a lot of people can benefit from because it's a kind of a horizontal solution.
Exactly.
So no matter what your industry is or what you're doing,
Yeah.
You can use it.
You want to talk a little bit about your experience with obfuscation?
Yeah, I didn't know what it meant.
Right. It's a common word. I mean, it's not a
So
common.
what do you mean? I want to obfuscate my data?
Yeah.
So I kind of had to look it up, and I checked out their website, and like you mentioned, it's like in Europe, there's a whole new data privacy rules.
Right.
Acronym is GDPR for that. And what it appears to do is it masks or hides that data, the fields that you want to obfuscate. And what it does is it kind of replaces these values with like a number series that you can set up, so that it kind of masks the values, so that if there's data that cannot be shared with certain people, you're obfuscating your data. And then behind the scenes, it's keeping track of what those original values were. I played around with it briefly. I ended up losing some of my fields. You definitely, if you're going to use that feature, I think maybe read the training materials or watch a video on how to use it and set it up.
Before trying it.
But before I messed with the obfuscation setup, I was able to set up 7 or 8 tables with about a half a dozen fields on each table. Mm-hmm. Like you said, installed it and immediately used it real quickly and effectively.
Yeah, worked great. I really want to know how they're indexing their stuff, though. I'm curious as to how they're able to search so quickly, especially being a cloud product. But
right, it definitely looks like they're doing something because when you did you see when you set up a couple tables and fields, when you leave the setup page, it tells you that it has to build the search index. Yeah. Would you like to do this now? And I don't know if you have a choice.
I think
you just say yes.
Yeah.
But it was pretty quick.
Yeah.
And how it did it.
15, 20 seconds tops.
But then, you just have a page called Global Search, and like search for, you put in the value, and then it shows you all the different results that have a match.
Came back today, tried it, worked just as good as it did yesterday.
Pretty slick. I even already added the bookmark. Bookmark that list page, so that now shows up right on my Roll Center.
Nice.
So I can just come in here and hit my global search anytime I want.
So if anybody has any questions or whatnot, we are a Clever Dynamics partner. Reach out to us. We'll be able to help you.
It is available for Business Central on-premise and cloud.
Nice. Stay tuned for our next segment, which is going to be the closing segment. Back for the closing segment of A Shot of Business Central. It's been a fun time. Had a blast. I know we need to review our beers and talk about that or whatnot. I'm going to let you go first with your beer review because...
Well, let me put it to you this way, Michael. Do you have any pretzels or anything over there?
I don't know.
Because I'd like to obfuscate the taste of this beer.
He wants to obfuscate. Render it obsolete. That's great. So it's not growing on you is what you're saying?
No, it didn't. I kind of... It kind of, as I'm drinking it, I detect notes of perhaps like someone had dropped a Matchbox car in my beer, and then I let it sit for maybe an hour and then drank it.
God, it just reminds me of well water, irony well water.
Yeah.
It
kind of tastes like it was made. You mean the pump?
The pump one,
out
yeah,
at the park, and you pump it,
exactly.
the water comes out.
And it's just so.
I think they use that water
to make
this beer.
Those Canadians. My review's not going to be that bad, so I wouldn't say it's. Well, what would you give it on a scale?
40.
40. Is that your lowest rated beer yet?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I've not gone even close to below 50. But I'm going to go 40. And the reason I'm going 40 is because I just pictured, my fridge in my basement, right? Bunch of drinks in there. You got some soda, some water, a bunch of beer. If this bottle was sitting in there, it would sit there until someday in the future where I just had to open it and pour it out.
When the power's out for about 2 weeks, and now you know it's just bad.
Yeah.
Toss it.
Like this is, no one's going to drink this at this point, right?
40, wow, that's pretty bad. So I did not get the irony taste that you got. I definitely got the banana taste, and it got stronger as it got more warm. So I'm not a big fan of that. So I'm going to go. My lowest was 50 with a cherry beer. I'm going to go 60. To me, if it's below 50, I can't drink a glass. So I'm going to go a solid 60. It's not the worst I've had, not the best I've had, but...
Yeah, I'm trying to picture, if I opened up my fridge and I saw this, and then, I don't know, there was a Coors Light, I'd grab the Coors Light.
Yeah. There's not too many things.
Maybe even a Bud Light. That's close, but
I wouldn't go that far.
I'm trying to picture what other. Definitely, all of the beers that we've had so far, I for sure would have grabbed first.
Yeah.
I guess it depends what day it is. The chocolate stout we had was pretty heavy.
Yeah, it was pretty heavy.
So, it depends what kind of mood I was in, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's that horror. I'm picturing a day here where I'm going to give it like a 10 or a 20. Eventually, something, right? So it's drinkable.
Right now,
I'm not going to go for it. I'm not going to grab it.
Yeah, to me, it's definitely not a winter beer. I'd be more inclined to drink it in summer. Like if I was out grilling somewhere, whatever, and somebody handed it to me, I'd drink it. You know what I mean? It would be okay, but I'm not going to choose to drink it.
If there was nothing else to drink, I would drink it.
So this was given to us by our colleague Elena, who's going to break the news to her.
Well, I don't know. Should I?
It's hard to let her listen to the podcast.
Preemptively apologize.
Well, we'll know if she heard the podcast then if she says something. So, but we just want to thank everybody for listening and tuning in. We talked about the Business Central news with what we had. We looked over the Clever Dynamics global search app. Ken talked about Business Central reporting with creating Business Central reports with Power BI and whatnot. And we also talked about the Microsoft Learning website with all the training capabilities and everything. Did I miss anything, Ken?
No, I'm just I'm going to throw a video out there of the how to build custom reports using Power BI, and successful with our app selection this month.
Yeah,
so that was cool.
Definitely.
And then looking forward to next month already.
Yeah, a lot more news. So thank you guys for joining us this month. We invite you to join us next month for a new episode. Until then, Keep making smarter decisions and accelerating your growth with Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central.